It's time now for County-Wide, a presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. You'll hear about the interesting issues and happenings that affect all our lives. Here's today's County-Wide.
Well, welcome to County-Wide. I'm Brad Miller, and we're happy to welcome back in studio for the second of two parts this week. Merilee Fowler is the executive director of MATForce, and that's matforce.org. Take a look at the website as Merilee and I kind of chat today, and you'll find a lot of great information there, including how to volunteer or be a part of MATForce with resourcing or whatever it is. However, you can contribute because MATForce has been a dynamo in protecting, a full generation of folks now, begun almost 20 years ago, and Merilee has been there as the guiding force for most of that time, and we welcome you into studio again.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here today.
I want to tell again, just to remind our listeners, this is the second of two parts, so we are going to build a tiny bit on some of the things we chatted about on Tuesday, but there's so much to talk about that a lot of this will be new and fresh as well. We did chat somewhat about fentanyl and how that's kind of today's skull and crossbones. It's what's really come to bear in certainly in our part of the country, if not all the way across the nation, coming up through Mexico typically, and it's being put in different kinds of things where people likely don't even know they're using it. But even that one isn't the most sinister culprit in this story, is it?
Well, we have a new trend now with fentanyl, and so what we're finding with this illicit drug that's being manufactured by drug dealers is that they're putting a new substance in with the fentanyl called xylazine. And xylazine is actually a medication that's used by veterinarians. It's a sedative for animals. But somehow they figured out that when xylazine is added into the fentanyl, it increases the potency of this medication. And so it's very much a concern. The DEA has been doing some studies, and they're finding that about 20% of the fentanyl is now containing xylazine, and it has been found in 48 of the 50 states. So another thing that we need to be really careful of. The concern that we have when xylazine is added into the fentanyl is that it's not an opioid drug. You know, fentanyl is an opioid drug, and there's a wonderful medication called naloxone or Narcan, some people know it as, that will reverse an opioid overdose. But when xylazine is introduced into the fentanyl, that makes the Narcan not as effective. So we still encourage people to use the Narcan if they have it available, but that it's going to increase the risk that somebody is going to overdose and die from that drug, even if they have the Narcan on hand.
Okay. That's depressing to hear.
Yes.
Is say that compound again?
Xylazine.
Xylazine. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's added to fentanyl. We hear about people stepping on drugs to kind of, like heroin might be 100% pure, and then they step on it with different things so that they can get more to sell.
Right.
But it'll also water down the effect. Is this xylazine used conversely to kind of so they can thin out the fentanyl, but it'll still give you that kick? Or is it a whole new ballgame?
It's really a whole new ballgame because what they've identified that it's going to increase the high. So, you know, it's a sad thing when you look at somebody that's struggling with a use disorder. You know, it's again, they're going to chase the high because their body will become, used to the drug, and they need to continue to increase the quantity. So now what drug dealers have figured out that adding the xylazine, another name that they call it is tranq, because it's a tranquilizer drug.
Okay.
So they'll call the substance tranq when it has xylazine in it, but it's increasing the high. So people will consider that to be the good stuff. So it's hard for us to understand, when we aren't dealing with an addiction, to think, why would they sell something that's going to kill people or that's more deadly? But we have to remember,
because they don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
The bottom line is
Right.
Those people do not care
Right.
where it goes or who it kills.
Absolutely. But if we look at the history of the opioid epidemic, again, it started with the prescription drug, opioids, okay? Mm-hmm. Then it went to heroin. About 2016, there was a conversion to it being heroin because that's about 50 times higher than the potency than morphine. Again, we got to remember they're chasing the high. Their prescription drugs were less available, and heroin had that increased high. Then it went to fentanyl because that, again, was another, 100% more potent than morphine or heroin. So now xylazine is the next step up where it's increasing that high and potency. So somebody that has a use disorder that maybe, regular fentanyl, they aren't going to have as much of, they're going to have to use more. The other thing that's interesting when we talk about this problem, we keep using the slogan, one pill can kill. And that's true with people that are opioid naive. They can take that one pill and it has a deadly dose. When somebody is seeking out that drug, has a use disorder, I've heard stories where they're using 40 to, I've heard stories of 100 pills a day. And we can't imagine that. Like, that doesn't make sense to us but their body has built up that tolerance and they're chasing the high. So now when xylazine is added in, they're going to get that high at a faster rate. So it's the good stuff that they will be seeking out.
100 baby aspirins could be lethal.
Absolutely.
To the wrong person.
Absolutely. And that's such an important point, Brad, that people have to realize again and understand that this illicit fentanyl comes in all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
The common blue M30 pill that we see, but I'm sure people have seen, they made it look like candy with these colored, look like Skittles. They, like you mentioned, aspirin. The Yavapai County has had busts where it looked like aspirin, looks like Xanax. It's counterfeit pills that are manufactured and laced with fentanyl.
The reason that they do that, why, is to trick the consumer and not the people who make and traffic in this stuff do not give a damn about the end user. Is it so that it can be disguised as legal, or simply so that the buyer, the user, thinks they're getting something they're familiar with?
No, there are definitely cases. A lot of the deaths that we've looked at of young people, they thought it was a prescription medication.
Okay.
But the primary person that is using these drugs are seeking out fentanyl. And that's the thing that people don't realize, because they have this use disorder and they're looking for the drug that has fentanyl. But I think the reason that they're doing this is getting it across the border is part of that.
Okay.
They're trying to disguise it so that people don't realize, when law enforcement might not realize what the drug is. And so, it's a really great question. Why are they doing this, and why are they changing it up constantly? I think it is more just to try to protect their business, illegal business that's harming our country.
Wow. You mentioned in all that maybe one of the worst pieces of this is that it makes the Narcan less effective. I think every first responder, including police, not just ambulance and EMTs, but police officers these days have Narcan. And I've maybe seen too many movies, but it's an injection or a spray?
So they have it both as an injection. It can come with, a needle that you would inject, or it is a nasal spray that you can just put in someone's nostril.
Okay. And
it's very simple to administer. So we really encourage families that might have somebody with a use disorder, or, just simply want to have that available to have Narcan. And we actually have it at MATForce. People can call us and we will get them Narcan to have available.
Like over the counter?
It used to be a prescription medication. The federal government has changed it now where you don't need a prescription. But the thing about the state of Arizona, when we were looking at the opioid epidemic, the chief medical officer of Access did a standing order, or I believe it was ADHS, the Arizona Department of Health Services, a standing order where that it allowed anybody to get Narcan without that prescription. But now that's changed federally where you don't need a prescription.
Okay, and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. That's a wonderful thing.
Access is the ballgame.
We look at the number of overdose deaths, and of course people have heard that in the 2022 it was over 100,000 people that died of an overdose in our nation. And, that was predominantly from fentanyl. I mean, we've been on this very significant upward trend because of the opioid epidemic. But Narcan has saved so many lives, and I would hate to see that number if it wasn't for, like you mentioned, law enforcement and first responders and our, so many people carrying Narcan that have saved so many lives.
There's got to be some people, I hope not, I don't want to plant any illicit seeds in anybody's mind, but think, well, Narcan, I've got some, my buddy's got some, I'll be okay. Give them a false sense of security. God, hope that never happens.
Well,
but can it work that way?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an overdose fatality review board where we do a deep dive with all of the overdoses that happen in Yavapai County. So we do a family interview. Mm-hmm. We look at the medical examiner's report. We look at the police report. And there are many cases where people do have Narcan, in around them as they have overdosed and died. So, again, I'd have nothing but good things to say about Narcan because we want to save any life.
Right.
But I do believe that could create that false sense of that they're going to be safe. And, the other thing, and it's something that's very important that we say to people that are struggling with the use disorder, never use drugs alone, so that somebody can have Narcan to save you if you're overdosing.
Right. Oh, boy. Okay. It's encouraging, but it's sometimes you 2 or 3 steps forward, one little step back can really kind of be heartbreaking. But that's why MATForce has continued and been so successful for so long. We're talking with Merilee Fowler, MATForce.org. That's the website. More to come on Countywide right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley. And your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Hi, this is Louis Rice with Rice Accounting, Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, with a very sincere thank you for your continued business over the last 20 years. All of us at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service are very honored for the many community awards we've been given over the years. As always, we are open year-round, providing services for taxes, payroll, and bookkeeping. Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, located throughout northern Arizona, can help you with all your tax and accounting needs. For our nearest location, call 800-234-1040.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We welcome you back to the program. I'm Brad Miller, Merilee Fowler, and MATForce, topic and guest for today's discussion. And as MATForce, with its longevity and its success and its leadership, and all of the folks who have played a part in it over the years and up to today, you've spawned some children in different kinds of programs and different kind of outreach. And I know that coming up in September, there's going to be kind of a celebration of one of those programs. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I love how you put that, because I do kind of think this is just one of our children. But, Brad, the big thing about MATForce is that we're only as good as the ideas that people bring to the table to address this very complicated issue of substance use and prevention. And so we had a conference, this was way back in 2010, where there was a gentleman that was talking, he had been in federal prison, and he was talking about the challenges of coming home that he had faced. And so, the conversation became on reentry from prison. And so there were a group of people there that were involved with MATForce that said, we'd like to form a committee and investigate how we could provide additional supports to people coming home from the Department of Corrections. And that's how the Yavapai Reentry Project was born, just simply an idea, and people that were willing to, build the infrastructure and have that a reality. And so after doing some investigation, one of the things that they identified is that people that are coming home from prison, if they have a mentor, they are much more successful.
Sure.
And so our project provides a volunteer community coach to individuals that are returning from prison to Yavapai County. We were very thankful that the Department of Corrections partnered with us, and so we got the names of individuals. We get a hold of them, about 3 months before they are going to be returning home, and then they are matched with a volunteer coach. And what the coach works with them on, the person, we call them a participant, that is coming home from prison, sets goals for themselves. So if they're looking for a job, if they're needing to find a place to live, if they might want to reunite with their family, they might need additional substance use treatment. So that coach comes alongside them and helps them to meet the goals that they've set for themselves. And it has been an absolute beautiful project that I'm so super proud of that MATForce has been able to implement.
Well, let me make sure I understand. You're talking about folks who are coming out DOC or whichever the incarceration is, and reentering, but not specifically that have drug issues.
No.
Or you're talking very generically.
Yes.
Okay.
But you know, what we find is that I would say that probably 80% of the people that were incarcerated, drugs had a direct correlation. You know, their addiction caused them to commit crimes and different things so that they were incarcerated.
And now that they're out of that environment, back onto the street,
yes,
which they've earned with their time served and
yes.
their penalties, it's the temptation to go back or the despair that drives you to go back.
Absolutely. And
I don't see, it could be overwhelming.
Right. And I think just, them knowing that we care about them, that we're there to support them, and there's a volunteer that's willing to give their time. I mean, we have had some of the most beautiful success stories in this project. And, I talked about the idea came up in 2010. It was January 2012 that we started matching, participants with coaches. And we've helped hundreds of individuals. And, there are just success story after success story of people that are living beautiful lives, and I think in large part due to that relationship that they developed with that community coach.
It reminds me an awful lot here early this spring, the Vietnam Memorial Wall came to town, and we talked with any number of veterans and their stories about being in service, especially being in combat, and that was the Vietnam War. And then all of a sudden it's over and you just go home.
Right.
The trauma of serving in prison, just to walk back out onto the street. Are there no preparatory kinds of services or things for folks who have been incarcerated and are getting out in-house?
Well, you know what? It's
not enough, maybe.
Well, it's so interesting. I think that we have totally evolved as a state. When I look at back in 2012, they didn't have an ID. People didn't realize that. Their driver's license was no longer valid. And for them to try to figure out how to get an ID was a big deal. The state has realized the importance of providing good reentry services.
Okay.
So there's a lot more that's been built up now in 2023 compared to when we started this project.
Okay.
So we're very thankful for that. But we have that unique component that just, a person from the community is saying, I want to help you. I want to support you. And it's not to do it for them. We're going to come alongside them and help them to achieve the goals that they want to achieve because they have to have the desire. It's one of the things that we started from the very beginning, that we weren't going to allow probation or parole to mandate people to be in our project because we knew this is a voluntary program, right? And if they're looking to start over and to have success, we want to be a partner with them.
If they feel they have to be there,
right? That's a different thing, and we just didn't want that to be a part of our project. We partner with parole and probation.
Right.
They've been involved with the project from the very beginning, but we will not allow them to mandate it. It's people that want to be a part of it, and we expanded later on to work with people coming out of the jail also. So it's just been a wonderful program. I highly encourage if anyone is listening today and they want to volunteer to contact us to consider being a coach because we're in need of more community coaches for that project.
So, MATForce.org is the website, and there's all kinds of information there about pretty much everything that we've been chatting about here today. It's a very comprehensive website. So MATForce.org, it's just M-A-T, Force, MATForce.org. Take a look there to find out more. If you can volunteer, if you can commit resources, or there's a lot of different ways that you can help support this terrific organization that is coming up on 20 years strong, serving our community. How many graduates, perhaps you said and I missed it, have come to that reentry?
You know what, I don't have the exact number, but we're somewhere around 300 individuals that we have successfully graduated from that project.
That's terrific. I'm guessing that there might be more than a few that have turned around and become mentors themselves.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And we actually have staff. Our coordinator is somebody that graduated, was one of our first participants, and she's absolutely amazing. So we're just so proud of the great success that they've achieved, and we're just thankful to be a part of that journey.
That's terrific. Yeah. Well, let me ask you, we're kind of closing here. This has gone very, very quickly. Organizations like yours frequently have a strong use and need for volunteers. Let's talk a little about that. If someone is interested, it seems like there's a lot of different directions you can go.
There are a lot of directions. And, MATForce was formed on volunteers because I mentioned, I came along when we first got funding as a paid staff. But that's our whole concept, is people from different sectors that are working together and volunteering. And so we have a speakers bureau if people like to present on different substances. That's volunteers. We have people that help us in the schools with prevention education.
Sure.
We have the community coach program. We have people that help us at community events, at tabling events. There, and even people that want to be a part of a committee, because that's a lot us having conversations on what's the next step for MATForce. So I just highly encourage anyone listening that would want to be a part of MATForce to go to the website or to call our office, and we would love to have them volunteer and be a part of our mission.
Okay, and again, MATForce.org. What about funding? I don't want to get into the deep dive of all of that kind of thing. I guess the biggest question is if someone is listening who could pledge resources. Does that help?
We definitely do get donations from community members, and we're grateful to that. MATForce has been very thankful to foundations who've supported us, and then we have grant dollars that also support the work that we do. Nothing that we never charge a fee for anything, of course.
Right.
But we're absolutely, if anybody, there's a place to donate on the MATForce website if that is something that anyone is interested in, and they can earmark it toward a certain project that appeals to them, because again, as you mentioned, there's lots of different things that MATForce is working on.
Many different directions, as we've heard in our program today and the earlier one that we did this week with Merilee Fowler, Executive Director, MATForce, and MATForce.org is the website. We'll come back to Countywide to wrap up right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor, Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology, factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Hi, this is Lewis Rice with Rice Accounting, Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, with a very sincere thank you for your continued business over the last 20 years. All of us at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service are very honored for the many community awards we've been given over the years. As always, we are open year-round, providing services for taxes, payroll, and bookkeeping. Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, located throughout northern Arizona, can help you with all your tax and accounting needs. For our nearest location, call 800-234-1040.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We welcome you back to Countywide. I'm Brad Miller, Merilee Fowler with MATForce, and we thank you so much for the work you have done for basically 2 decades now, and certainly for visiting with us today. But coming up September 23rd will be a celebration important to you, kind of back to what we just talked about in the earlier segment.
Right. It's really important in our mission that we support people in recovery, and so we're really excited that on September 23rd in Prescott, that's the Yavapai County Recovery Celebration. And so there's booths and there's going to be music and people giving testimonies of their recovery and activities for children. And it's just a great event. And I encourage everybody that's interested to check that out at the MATForce website for more information and to join for that event.
Date, time, all of those pertinents are there. Again, if you have some volunteerism in your heart, if you have the time for that, there's a lot of different programs as we've illustrated over our last couple of days conversation with Merilee Fowler. Again, thank you so much. Always good to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Brad.
Let us know how we can help you help the community. I'm Brad Miller. It's Countywide, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Countywide. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday at this time. If you have a topic or guest idea that you'd like to suggest, email us, news@myradioplace.com.